All right. At this session, you're going to first of all choose a story, a lesson that you would like to learn to teach. So this is not one that you're going to do in front of us just yet, but we'll do that a little bit later on. But for right now, choose one lesson that you would like to learn the story for. So take 2 minutes and just look through the book and pick one that you think would be nice you would enjoy learning. Okay, once you've found your story, take your highlighter pen, and I want you to highlight the storyline. It's right under the adventure number in the scripture passage in a little gray box there. It says storyline. And I want you to highlight that sentence or phrase. The storyline is really important to keep in mind as you're preparing your lesson because it'll influence every part of your lesson. That's the sometimes it's called the big idea. That's what you really want to get across in this lesson time. Okay? All right, so we're going to learn how to prepare a story for teaching. And you might think, well, if you know the Bible story, then you can tell the Bible story. Well, that's true. You probably could tell someone the facts of the Bible story pretty well. But if you want to have a lesson that's really going to impact your children in your class, you need to spend some time preparing for it. And there's a little process that I'm going to take you through. I think you'll find it very helpful because the last thing you want to do is read the story from the lesson book, right? Not that we haven't all done that once in a while, but don't do that. You want to make it come alive. There was a teacher that I once really respected. He's with the Lord now, but he said it's a sin to make the Bible boring. And I think, that's a pretty accurate statement because the Bible is not boring. So don't teach it as if it were. So we're going to spend time preparing for this. We spend time preparing for a lot of things, don't we? For a meal, for a vacation, for a presentation at work, for your garden, whatever it might be. We spend time preparing for things that are important to us. So let's prepare well for this. Okay, so with the lesson that you've chosen, we're going to go through some steps. The first thing I want you to do is turn to where it says tell the story, the actual story. That would be 1, 2, probably starts on the 3rd page of the lesson. Okay, so right now I'm going to ask you to read your story out loud 2 or 3 times, and I'll give you about maybe 3 minutes to do that. When it looks like about everybody's done, we'll move on to the next thing. And you might say, well, I don't want to read it out loud. That's, embarrassing or whatever. Everybody else is going to be doing it too. So there's something about not only reading it, but hearing it. And when you say it out loud, then you hear it and say it. So that it'll help you to learn the story well. So you have your story picked out, everybody, right? Okay, so right now you're going to read it out loud 2 or 3 times, and I'll tell you when we're ready to move on. Okay? Go. Okay, we're going to move along to the next thing. The next thing I want you to do is break your story into scenes. And you can use the marker to just draw a line dividing, like this would be the first scene of the story. And if there's another, some stories will take place all in one room or one location. But if some of the stories, most of them will have 2 or 3 different main thoughts or scenes. Sometimes it's in a different place. Sometimes it's just a transition to a different topic or something. But take your pen and physically draw a line like this is where the first scene ends. And somewhere either between 2, 3, or 4 scenes is about right. So take your writing instrument and just divide it up into scenes. Okay, when you finish that, then I want you to go back and identify the important people or ideas in each scene. And you can circle the person or the idea. You can highlight it, underline it, whatever you want to do. But identify the important people and things in each scene. Okay, now I want you to envision the room where you teach, the space where you teach, or where you would teach if you had a class. If you don't have a class right now, that's fine, but envision that space and then think about where the different scenes could take place around the room. So if you have the space where your kids could move around, then maybe one scene takes place over here. Maybe Abraham and Isaac are over here, they're at home. God speaks to Abraham and says, take your son, your only son Isaac, and go out to the hill and offer him there as a sacrifice. So the next morning, Abraham and Isaac got up and they went. Then they stopped for the night. And then they went another day. And then they stopped for the night. And, see if you can find a way to move around, because every time you change something like that, you re-grab your kid's attention again. And so if you can be in different places, there's nothing that says a teacher has to stand right here and just teach. That's easy, but it's not any harder to move around. You just have to give it a little bit of thought ahead of time. So decide where in your room, different places that your scenes could take place, if you have the room to move. And if you don't, get creative. Maybe you have the kids stand up for part of the lesson, or crouch down, or walk in place. If you don't have room to move to a different spot, then that's okay. But find a way to change something up in the physical presentation of the story. Okay, take about 1 minute for that. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to, when I say go, you're going to pick up your lesson book and you're going to choose a spot somewhere in the room to be your, where you would stand to begin your lesson. And then you're going to read your story out loud again, but this time you're going to move around as you do it. And as you read the lesson, you're going to move to wherever you said the next scene would be. Or if you're going to have the children do something, you do the actions that they would be doing, whether it's sitting or standing or looking for something, whatever it is. You're going to pick up your book, take it with you, and you're going to move around the room as you read your story one more time. Yes?
That's a quick question. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I find that having the kids do something maybe sometimes distracts them.
Uh-huh.
What do you find, what's a good limit, I guess? Do you have any advice about that?
Well, some of it depends on the age of your class. What age do you teach?
Well, our ages right now is 4 years old to 5th grade. So
Yeah. Well, it has to be something that's simple enough to not be distracting, because, the tail can start wagging the dog, and you get all into the activity, and then, you lose the focus of what you're teaching. So I would say, if it's distracting, either it's too complex or too many different things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so does everybody have in mind where your scenes are going to be? All right, pick up your book, stand up, and find a spot to start. You're going to read your story out loud as you move around the room. Okay, come on back in. Take your places at your tables. Okay, so now I want everyone to choose a partner, 2 people together, only 2, if possible. If there's an odd number, then Grandpa Jim will be somebody's partner. And this time, you're going to tell your story to your partner, but you can't take the book with you. So you've read it out loud at least 3, maybe 4 times, and it's not going to be perfect, but you're going to tell the story. You're not going to read the story, you're going to tell the story. Okay, so 2 people together, and you're going to walk around the room with them, and if you want to explain anything as you go, you can. And then we'll switch, and the other person will tell their story to you. So we'll take, let's say, 5 minutes for each person. Plan on about 5 minutes for each person. but as soon as you're done, then just go ahead and switch and tell the story the other way, the other person to the first one. Does that make sense? Okay, and you're going to move around, and you've learned the story, a little bit so far. So as you're telling it this time to your friend, try to incorporate a little bit more dramatic voice and, really get into it and make it interesting, not boring. Okay? Okay, so pair up into groups of 2, and we'll do. Does anybody need a partner? If you're not sitting by somebody that you're partnered with, Mark and Nathan. Okay, if you need a partner, see me and I'll find you one. Okay, how long do you think that whole exercise took us? About
45 minutes, maybe?
maybe less. I'm thinking less than 30. Really, it doesn't take that long to just go through and prepare yourself, prepare your mind to know what the lesson is. And if you divide it into the scenes and you identify your important characters, it kind of helps you have a framework to hang everything on. So that's just a good way to prepare the actual story. I will say also, plan your first and last words carefully. The first thing that you say can really grab their attention. And I would like to point out also in regard to that, the Bible activity, it comes after the lesson in the way the curriculum's laid out, because we wanted the format to be the same throughout. But there are times that the Bible activity is more of an introductory thing, and there's other times it's more of an after the lesson thing. So just take that into account as you're preparing, that sometimes it's better used before the lesson, kind of as that attention grabber. Okay, so did anybody have something that they felt like they learned from going through the steps of the preparing a story? Is there anything that you'd like to share with the rest of the group that you felt like you learned from that other than learning the story?
Being a housewife is harder than being a nurse.
Okay. And what was that from the Bible story, or was that just from conversation?
Just while I'm sitting next to Lizzie,
Uh-huh.
she got texts from like every single family. And
Okay.
texts from my supervisor.
There you go. Yep, that's true. I know when I've gone through this and taken the steps of preparing, I realize sometimes that I don't know the story as well as I thought I did to actually present it. And this happened one time when we were teaching, not this, but a different group of people, kids actually. And one of the people that was teaching a lesson just kind of thought that they would just wing it. And it really didn't work out very well. This is somebody that knows the Bible really well, but you need to prepare if you're really going to have an effective message to share. Okay, so after you've learned your story well, the next thing you want to do is decide how you're going to tell the story. So consider just some ideas I'll just throw out to you. Use eye contact. When you look a person in the eye, you connect with them. And if somebody is not paying attention, I might try to say, didn't say a word with my mouth, but with my eyes, I'm like, I'm watching you. I know you're not paying attention. And just a little smile. They know. Another thing is you can use different facial expressions. If you're happy and you know it, tell your face. Have you ever heard that? So if Daniel was going into the lion's den, how do you think he would have been? Would he have been, oh yeah, I'm going to go jump in the lion's den tonight? No, he would have been scared. And the king, Darius, he was terrified because he knew that Daniel was an upstanding man. He'd done nothing wrong. But the people that accused him, they trapped the king, tricked him, and he had to go and throw Daniel in the lion's den. And the next morning, when he went to check on him, Daniel, breakfast is ready. Time to get up. Come on. You think that was it? No, it's Daniel. Has the God that you serve been able to deliver you? His voice was full of fear and apprehension. So you do that when you tell the story. Make it match the story that you're telling. You can use a variety of voices, pitches, volume. You might want to think about having a different voice for each character in the story. Like Mary, think about when Mary and Joseph were at the temple and Jesus was lost among the crowd, or he was with some other people, they thought. But instead he was in the temple listening to the teachers and asking them questions. And Mary came to Jesus, and when they finally found him 3 days later and said, "Son, how could you do this? Didn't you know that we would be searching for you? We've looked everywhere for you." And Jesus very calmly said, "Didn't you know that I would be about my Father's business?" So have, like a little bit of a different intonation for the different characters in the story. It really brings it a lot of interest and brings it to life. Move your body and arms. Don't be afraid to get active. Just, standing here like this is a pretty boring way to teach. So when Jesus met the woman at the well and someone was drawing water, draw water up from the well. Pick it up, pour it into the trough for the camels. Use your whole body as you teach. And don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes silence can be a very powerful moment to emphasize what's coming next. Like when Noah built the ark and all the animals came on, God brought the animals to him 2 by 2, some of them 7 animals that were going to be used for sacrifices. And then God closed the door. And just that little moment of silence kind of adds a little bit of emphasis to what's coming after it. I always set a goal to bring at least one creative element to every lesson that I'm going to teach. And it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be something you go out and buy. It probably shouldn't be most of the time. Like you might just use a piece of fabric, like a scarf, something else that's just a simple piece of fabric. What do you think this fabric is going to represent today? What could it represent? A river. It could. Could represent a river. It could represent an ocean. First it's a river, now it's an ocean. It could represent a baby. Kids can use their imagination. We adults are the ones that get stuck in the has to be just so. It could be, see if we can open up a little bit further here. It could be an ark, and everybody who's in the ark is going to be safe. So everybody has to get in the ark. All your kids crowd into the ark. There's room for everybody. But if you're outside the ark, you're not going to be safe. So a simple thing like a piece of fabric can be a myriad of different things. Let's see. You might bring a bell. And every time I ring this bell, I want you to say whatever it is you're wanting to emphasize in the story. Like I was teaching a group of children this past summer about the life of Joseph. And Joseph had all kinds of things happen to him that he was not expecting. And I told the kids, when you go through your life, you're going to have things that you don't expect. God's going to take you down different paths that were things that you never planned for, you never asked for, you never wanted. But in the end, God will bring it all together. And so every time I ring this bell, I want you to say, that's not what I expected. So during the course of the story with Joseph, his brothers sold him to the caravan that was coming through. What do you think Joseph thought?
That's what I expected.
That's right. And after he served faithfully in Potiphar's house, and he had entrusted so much to him because he was such a good worker and so wise and so disciplined in everything that he did. And then Potiphar's wife accused him falsely. Did Joseph do anything wrong? No. But he was thrown in prison. No, and you can use that same little technique for many different things. Something that you want them to remember, that's not what I expected, but someone else might have meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. So a simple bell could be something. What about a little snack, like grapes? What Bible lesson can you think of that I might use grapes as an illustration for? Spy on the promised land. Now, these grapes, I can hold in one hand. But do you know the grapes that they found in the promised land were so big, one bunch of grapes, a man could not carry them. Big, strong man. They had to put it on a pole, and 2 men had to carry that pole between them. They'll look at grapes differently after that. And they'll remember how overflowing the blessings of God were going to be in the promised land if only they would trust him. But they didn't. It might be, you might bring a stuffed animal, let the kids take turns holding a stuffed animal. Maybe if they answer a question, they get to hold it for a while till the next question. You might bring in a book or a scroll to open up and read an important announcement. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Just let your creative juices roll and don't feel like something has to be fancy or special or expensive. Use something that you have and then use your imagination, because I assure you your children will enjoy that. Another thing that is kind of a creative element is find a way to involve the children in the lesson. Maybe let them help you decide on motions for the song or the memory verse. Have them rock back and forth on the stormy sea when Jesus calmed the storm. Walk in place if you don't have room to move around the room. I already mentioned that. And then, like I said earlier, plan how you'll begin your lesson. Don't just jump straight in. And now, boys and girls, today we're going to learn about, that's kind of boring. Instead, start with a question, something to get them to think. What's the most important announcement you've ever been given? What do you think would be just an amazing way to share that good news with somebody else? What if you knew the cure for cancer? Would you tell people about that? But what if you couldn't explain it perfectly? Would you keep it to yourself? No. You'd tell somebody. You'd do the best you could, right? But what do we have? We have the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we need to tell people. You may not get it perfectly right, but you don't want to keep it to yourself, for sure. So involve the children in the lesson. Now, this is one of my favorite parts of the lesson and of the training, and that is the songwriting. Like Jim mentioned earlier, when we were trying to come up with songs that could translate to different languages and such, and songs just don't translate very well. And the main reason for that is the syllables don't match in one language the way they do, and the words don't rhyme. So the best way to create a song or to come up with a song for a lesson that you're going to be teaching, if you don't already have one. Some of you will know songs that would work with lessons, but if you want to create one to go along with the lesson where you don't have a song, you can write it yourself. Now, I think one person in this room at least has written songs before, and that's Nate. Has anybody else ever written a song? Okay. Usually I have 0 people that have ever written a song, but that's okay. You are all going to be songwriters today. And this is how we're going to do it. No, don't laugh. It's true. This is how we're going to do it. You're going to borrow a tune that you already know, and that your kids already know, such as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Old MacDonald Had a Farm, Happy Birthday. We were in a place not too long ago, and I was trying to come up with a tune that would be common between the Spanish language and English, that both groups would know, that I would know and that the people I was teaching would know. So I asked our translator, would Old MacDonald be a song that these people would know? She's like, no, for sure not that one. So we were trying to think of one. We went back and forth. So I said, okay, I'm just going to use that as an example. I'll just tell them what it is. So I said, for example, in the country where I live, a popular children's song is Old MacDonald. And it goes like this. Old MacDonald had a farm. And with one voice, everyone in the audience said, E-I-E-I-O. And I looked at the translator, I'm like, aha. But anyway, right now, we're gonna do this 2 times. But right now, I want you to think of some other little tunes that everybody would know, and let's brainstorm and come up with a little list of like resources to work from. So I've already mentioned Old MacDonald, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Happy Birthday. What else? I'm gonna borrow this again.
Yeah.
What would be another one? And we'll just write down a list.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Jingle bells.
Good.
Farrazaka.
Good.
Baby shark.
So I have Mary Had a Little Lamb, Baby Shark, Wheels on the Bus. What was the other one? Oh, for Farrazaka.
Let it go. It depends on your era.
Yeah. Okay, well, the important thing is that you know the tune well and you can teach it to the kids. So, okay, so you've got some ideas there. We're going to come back and actually write a song to go along with a lesson that we're going to be studying closer to the end. But just have that in the back of your mind. We have done this in many, many different settings, and it is so much fun. And I'm going to say, too, when we work on making up a song, we'll work together in groups of about 3 people, so you won't be on your own. But we're going to save that for just a little bit later.
Look through the book and pick an activity that is on the right side of the page that you really like, because you're going to tell in a few minutes about a dozen people why you like this activity. So just don't pick one and say, okay, yeah, I picked one, Jim. You're going to explain it to. So look through there. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. You're going to need a book, and you're going to say, you're going to tell about a dozen people. I'll tell you how to do it in just a minute. I really like this activity because. So take some time, look through the book, pick one you like, and when you've picked one that you like, stand up. One and stay with it. And then what I'm going to do in just a minute is I'm going to have this line move down one. You guys can stay right here. Then you'll explain, first of all, to Courtney, and then you'll explain to Paula, and then Paula will, you'll say the same, you'll stay the same, you'll just to a different person. Okay? Take 1 minute, explain the activity, both of you back and forth to each other, and I'll tell you when to. I'll ring the bell, and this group will go down this way, east, one person. Gary, you'll circle around and go up there, and then you'll be at the end, and then Phil, same thing. Okay, take 1 minute, and doesn't make a difference. Okay. Okay, go. All right.
Age before beauty.
I picked out from Adventure Number 66. It's on page 333. This is about the story of the rich man and Lazarus.
It's called the praise bucket. That's where you get people to sit around the bucket and you give them coins or buttons or something, and then you go around and you ask each one of them something that they could praise God for, to get them to think about that we should be praising God all the time, to realize all the things that we have to be thankful for and to be praising God for. Sort of like the thing at Thanksgiving, you make a list of all the things to be thankful for. I don't know if that's what we're supposed to do or not, but that's what I do.
Several years ago, we did John the Baptist.
Well, we've seen a lot of storytellers over the years, haven't we?
Some really good ones.
Yes, and a lot of people, maybe most, have this feeling, I think, Susan, I can't do this. So what do you think some of the biggest obstacles are for somebody as they think about, I want to be a storyteller, but I don't know how?
Well, I think one obstacle is just fear. Fear of not doing a good job, fear of making a fool of yourself in front of your class. There's a lot of things that play into that. But I think another obstacle sometimes is just lack of preparation. You may think, well, I know the story, so I can surely tell the story. And that may be true, but if you want to craft a really effective presentation of a Bible story, or any story for that matter, you need to do some preparation for it. Learn your story well, plan what you're going to do to bring creativity to it. And I think also sometimes people, they just don't think that they have the resources to tell a story well. Maybe they would like to have teaching pictures, or they'd like to have props. And what you have to remember is let your creativity flow in telling a story. You can use all kinds of things, like changing positions in the room to a different location. You can make something into something else. I mentioned using a scarf to represent a river or a boat, or wrap it up and make it a baby. All kinds of things you can do with simple props, things that you already have. And so I think there's a lot of reasons why people might not know how to proceed to become a better storyteller. Maybe you have a practical suggestion, Jim, that could help.
Yeah, I've watched our son, Justin, who is a preacher, a pastor. He speaks every Sunday, almost every Sunday, preaches. But what he does almost every Thursday is he pre-preaches. He preaches the message to a small group, and they help him. We didn't understand this, we understood this. So he preaches the message on Thursday as a tune-up in front of a small group, maybe just his wife, our daughter-in-law, Emily. And Emily or somebody will give some suggestions. I didn't understand this. I think you could have been clear of that. So when he preaches before he actually preaches on Sunday, this isn't the first time he's preached it. And I think that's a really good example to follow, that when you tell the story ahead of time, maybe to your kids, maybe to your spouse, maybe to a friend, and then you can tell it better. So telling it early, telling it before you get to your class will help you to, I think, tell the story better.
Yes, absolutely. And it feels a little awkward to tell a story that's intended for children to an adult or, a friend. But don't worry about that. They're there to listen and help you. And even at times, I tell the story to an empty room and just practice, what is this really going to sound like when I say it out loud? And practice walking through your steps. And I think you'll find that a super helpful tip.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying about preparation. The more you prepare to be a better storyteller, the better storyteller you'll be.
Exactly. Yes, don't prepare on Saturday night for what you're going to do on Sunday. Prepare on Sunday night what you're going to do for the following Sunday.
Right.
You'll be better off for it.
Good.